Welcome to Moonscapes. It's Sunday night, April the 14th, 2014, and we've got a fairly nice crescent moon hanging in the western sky tonight. I've got my 5-inch max shoot-off cast grain telescope in use tonight on my Atlas mount. And again, I'm mobile. Again, I am Jim Hannon. I'm coming to you from Terryville, Connecticut. As you remember from some of my last videos, I used my son's shed up off of his garage during the winter months, but now we're getting into the spring months and the moon is starting to ride higher in the sky now and then low as it gets later in the month, and it will not be accessible from that shed. So I am mobile again. I'm in a car in a parking lot back behind the retirement community I live in, and got 2 computers set up in here, the telescope set up outside, and we're running everything off of battery packs. I've upgraded my computer. I went from 4 gigs of RAM. I went to 8 to see if that'll improve the computer problem I was having with the Logitech program. We'll see how that goes. Speaking of Logitech, the images are being taken with the Logitech C910 camera. Right now I've got everything is on auto, I believe. Let me just go back and double check. I want to see where I left the color settings. Focus. Focus is in. That's in manual. Okay, I've got focus in manual. I got a good focus, so that's good. And let me see. Color settings are in auto. And with the crescent moon, there's not an awful lot of color being presented tonight. I'm going to just zoom around here a little bit and just give you an idea of what we've got here first. And then I want to talk about a particular feature that we talked about last month. As you can see, we have a thin crescent. The round Mare right there is Mare Crisium, and within that area is a feature that we're going to talk about shortly. And as you can see, I have nice detail along this terminator tonight of the moon. I've got my moon atlas going up here. Let me see if I can pick out that double set of craters right there. Let me. I've got my other computer here with my Lunar atlas. That crater just off center to the left, that is, okay, the computer has given me a name which it might be not quite on the crater. Hang on, give me 1 second to recheck that. This computer is acting on battery, is acting a little slow for some reason. Let's try this crater here. This might be a little easier to work with. Let's see what it gives me. No, it's jumping all over the place. I'm having some trouble with my Lunar Atlas computer here for some reason. Could be because I'm trying to run it off of a battery pack which is smaller than the other battery packs I've been using. And it might be... okay, that large crater just off center and going over a little bit towards 9 o'clock is Lagranus. And you know, I don't want to trust this too much because this computer is really acting funny. Let me check. Pull this down a little more. Let me move the image of the moon around a little bit, and let's see if we can line this up with the atlas. No, this isn't working out too well tonight. I'm having some trouble with my atlas computer, so I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. We'll just take a look around at some of this nice detail along the crescent here. And I want to get down to Mare Crisium, and we will talk about the main feature I wanted to get to tonight. And we've got to bring it down and get down to Mare Crisium. We've got to go up a little bit, and there's Mare Crisium. Okay. One way to find out whether this is working the way I want it to or not is see if I can get the names of the craters that are inside of Mare Crisium. Let's see if this computer will give me those. Let me see. There are two craters, small craters inside of Mare Crisium. They almost look like two small eyes. Okay. The one to the left is Picard, and the one to the right in Mare Crisium is Pierce. Those are the craters inside, those two craters up near the upper part of Mare Crisium. Now, the feature I wanted to discuss tonight is, and I'm going to zoom in on Mare Crisium and center up the object a little bit, is another one of the features that caused some disruption with observers back a little over 50 years ago on this one. As you might notice, I have an interest in some of the historical things that have happened with observers on the moon. This particular feature on the moon is called O'Neill's Bridge. And before I start talking a little bit about it, let me show you where it is. I'm going to zoom all the way in. I probably should have used a little bit higher power, but we can get away with what I have. Notice right at the very top of Mare Crisium, where the mountain range comes around and it makes like a ring. Notice up, and let me put it more so it's right about the, okay, it's almost, I'm going to put it just about dead center, probably the best way to do it. Okay, it's almost dead center now. Notice the ring breaks in Mare Crisium. That circle breaks, and there's what looks like two fingers pointing at each other. Back in, let's see, it was, I believe it was, it was July of 1953. A John O'Neill, he was the editor of the New York Herald Tribune in New York. He was also an amateur astronomer, and using a 4-inch telescope, he observed this area of the moon, and he saw what he thought was a natural bridge. He was probably observing it a few, maybe at least a day or so earlier than we are in this cycle, and the sun angle would have been lower. And the way the angle, the sun throwing in there that night, it looked to him like there was a natural bridge there. Now that was enough to cause a stir in the astronomical community, as happened a number of times before. But the story got bigger because actually across the pond, as we call it, over in England, a fella picked up the story and ran with it and really caused this to become quite a sensation. A fellow by the name of Hugh Percy Wilkins, a very well-known British amateur astronomer, very well respected, and head of the BAA, or the British Astronomical Association, Lunar section, picked up the story, and he began to study the area. Now, he, let's bring us to start to drift a little bit. Let me bring it back. He got invited to a radio talk show, and they discussed the bridge and his work on it, and his observations of it. And unfortunately, as sometimes happens in these programs, also the subjects of UFOs came up during the talk of this bridge on the moon. UFOs and, of course, intelligent life on the moon. And here we go again. What happened was, the way the show ended, Wilkins never really kibosh the idea that it was artificial. And the way the show ended, it was actually left, you could almost take in that possibly that the bridge was artificial. And that's the way it was left, and it really damaged Wilkins. Wilkins was very well respected in Britain, had written a book in 1954 on the moon. In fact, I have a copy of that book. Wilkins actually came to the United States and went to Mount Wilson, used a 60-inch telescope, and observed the bridge there, and he claims that he confirmed the bridge there, but downsized it. Originally said it was something like 12 miles across or something like that, but he downsized it to about 1.5 miles. He never really completely recovered from the brush with this incident and associated it with artificial intelligence and beings on the moon. And again, this was another observer that had his reputation tarnished. And unfortunately, he never really completely recovered. He was well respected, but he lost some of that respect. And unfortunately, he died in 1960. So he never really had a chance to, explain himself and explain why he thought that was a bridge. And to distance himself from the fact that there might be UFOs involved and aliens and all this kind of nonsense with it. And as you can see there is no complete bridge completely across. I've lost it. Let me bring it back. You can see the two fingers end. There is no bridge there. It's been confirmed that there is no bridge. There was no bridge. It was just the way the sun shadows hit the moon at certain times. It can give different looks on different nights, especially with a very, very low sun angle. My computer here from my Atlas is flashing at me, and I'm going to take a second here and unplug it and plug it into the car battery. And let's see if that'll save me from completely losing that in case I want to try using it later. Bear with me 1 second here. This is really pretty tough. As I said, I'm working in my car, and it really is. I'm really kind of crunched in here. I don't have an awful lot of room, and believe it or not, it's still pretty cold. I know we're at April 14th, but the temperature's probably dropping down now into the 30s here, and it's chilly out. It's chilly out there. So the car is actually a plus, and I'm right now. I'm going to turn it on and get a little bit of heat going in here. It's really starting to get pretty chilly. But anyway, that's the story of the bridge in Mare, Crisium, and unfortunately, it tarnished another observer. The fact of beings on the moon and UFOs and all that. Now I know. I'm just going to kind of zoom around here. Look at that beautiful scene there. We're just starting to get the shadows to drift out onto the Mare floor, where Mare Serenitatis and Mare Tranquility would be. And look at those mountains and hillocks there, and the little craters and those long shadows. That's pretty impressive. I hate to get into the subjects of UFOs and the like. I really hate to, in effect, step on people's toes. I mean, if you believe in UFOs, or you believe that there's life on the moon, that's fine. And I would hope you would continue to check in on my videos and look at them and use them if you want. And if you see something there that says, hey, that's life on the moon, that's fine. You use my videos if you want to prove that fact. I'm, of course, completely of the other tack on that. I approach it very scientifically. I've been a serious amateur astronomer for 57 years. I've been using a telescope for 57 years. So I have some qualms with some people that are on YouTube with their sites and talking about UFOs on the moon. In particular, one site claims there's all kinds of UFO activity going on in the moon. And I viewed his videos very carefully, and I can tell you they're birds. I can see that there's a lot of activity early in the evening. There's activity very early around dawn, and during the night there's little activity. And apparently he's got some, about a half a mile or a mile away, he's got some roosting birds that are quite active and flying in front of the moon. Now, he claims to have a Schmidt, he calls it a Schmidt-Carradine telescope. He's actually got a Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope, is the actual telescope he has. And the proof he uses for the UFO is that he claims it's a light-gathering instrument. Well, all telescopes are light-gathering. Newtonians are gathering. Maxudovs are light gathering. Cassegrains are any type of telescope you name is a light gathering telescope. That's how they work. They gather light. All telescopes, you can stick your finger in front of them right now. If I were to go out and stick my finger in front of my Maxudov Cassegrain right now, you would not see it. And I'm going to move around here. Look at these craters. Boy, there's some beautiful craters here along this edge. And you would not see it. So the type of telescope has nothing to do with it. The fact that if these birds are nesting a half a mile away or a mile away and they flock out of a tree and they have to fly in front of the moon, you're going to see them, and what you see crossing there is exactly what they look like. Believe me, I've been using the telescope for 57 years, and that's what they are. Now, my other argument against what he's seeing being UFOs are, I have quite a number of hours now of video of the moon from where I am shooting here. And not one time have I seen one of those cross my screen. Now, if what he's seeing down there were really UFOs, then I would see them here also. And, of course, we're not seeing them. The other thing that kind of bothers me, again, about this kind of controversy of life on the moon and being settled with aliens and all this. Again, if you're of that mind, I don't really care. I mean, that's fine. You make up your own mind. But one thing that kind of bothers me is when people like me, who are serious amateur astronomers and amateurs, are called Looney Tunes because we don't believe in all the color that's coming from this camera at times, and that you know, it's just the camera itself is working well, but it's really boosting the power. As you can see here tonight, it's just showing us a nice moon without a lot of color. But these sites also, some of them talk about the Mares being a crystalline material, and you can see structures below them and all that. And I don't like when they say, well, NASA's lying. Why don't they tell us about this? Well, the reason NASA doesn't tell you about it is because they're not there. I mean, if NASA doesn't believe they're there, they're not going to tell you about something that's not there. The structure that you think you're seeing on the Mars, if you're one of those so inclined, actually, here we're up at the very tip, so let's kind of go back. We haven't got any really Mare to look at tonight to show you what I'm talking about. But what you're seeing on the surface, well, here's a little bit here. You can see some of this Mare right here. This is just short. This is just before going out onto Mare Serenitatis and Mare Tranquillitatis. See that shading there? Those whitish spots and all. You got to remember, the moon is being bombarded and has been bombarded all through its history. All kinds of debris is thrown up, creating that regolith that covers the moon's surface. And when it lands on these Mare, where the lava has flowed and made these nice flat areas, they're almost like chalkboards. It leaves all these patterns on the surface, depending on where the meteor hits and where the debris is thrown out. Some of it is this beautiful ray structure. And there's, it's just all kinds of patterns going every which way. And that's what you're seeing. And again, another thing that's brought up from that argument is what looks like lights on the surface and below the surface. Well, as you can see here, there are no such lights because the sun angle is really low. That happens when the sun angle gets really high and it hits these craters, and young craters show up as very, very white. Now, if we can get over to the edge and look for some here, notice along here, along the terminator, there's a couple of mountain ridges that just stick up. They are still in complete shadow, in the dark, and yet the peak is sticking up and catching sunlight. Now, some of those are so tiny that when you get a night of bad seeing, they actually look like they're flickering on and off. And as all it is the resolution of the telescope is changing with the bad seeing, and it causes these ridges to actually look like they're flickering on and off. But my biggest argument about them being lights, is if we see them while the sun is hitting them, and if they are lights, why, when that area of the moon goes to the other side of the terminator where it's dark, why do they go out? I mean, if they were lights, that you would see them on the dark part of the moon, just like we see the lights of Earth at night from our satellite photos of the Earth. Anyways, I just thought I would talk a little bit about that. Some of the things that kind of bother me with this talk about UFOs and non-UFOs. And again, as I say, I hope you watch my videos. I hope you enjoy them, and no matter what view you take. I'm just pointing my point of view. I'm strictly scientific. I don't believe in the UFOs. If you do, that's fine. And I hope you take a look at these videos and see what you can see. And hey, if you can find something that proves that there's life there, that's fine. And you want to use my shots to do it, go right ahead. Not a problem with me at all. Let's zoom around. I'm looking, again, as I've said in the past, I don't realize how quick the time goes by. Let's zoom in on some of these crater formations here. There's some nice detail here. I'm actually a little surprised that the scene is better. You start to lose it as we get in real close. It gets a little soft and mushy there. I've got my map up working again a little better. Let me see if I can identify a feature or two. Let me drop down these. See, how far are we in? We're 23 minutes in already. See what I mean? It's just like the time goes by so fast. Let me get down. I'm going to get down to Mare Crisium again, and I want to get up. Yeah, okay. This crater just off of Mare Crisium. That, yeah, I want to see if my computer is going to give me the proper name of that now. Let's see. Formicus. I believe that, I'm having trouble lining these things up. Now that, no, I've got the wrong crater. It's got to be this one right here. It looks like Condorcet, and the size of that crater is 45 miles. The crater I'm talking about is that big round crater just to the left of Mare Crisium, just over that mountain ridge on the edge of Mare Crisium, and it's got some craters actually in the floor. We could actually zoom in on that a little bit and get a little better look at it. Let me center it up a bit. Right there. There you can see some of the cratering in the floor. Notice as soon as we zoom in, we start to lose some of that seeing. Seeing really starts to go on us. It really gets a little soft as we get in too close. Okay, and let me see here. So my drink bottle down. I want to make sure I don't spill it, or I'm going to have a mess. having trouble finding the pocket for it. Here, there we go. Let's do this. There we go. That's better. Okay. But anyway, we'll drop it back out again. And as I say, notice the color. The color intensity is, there's almost none tonight. I'm not pushing it at all. Speaking of color, well, I'll get to that in a second. Let me just try. Let's take auto off and let's see what happens. Let me back out a little bit and let's just see what we do get for color if I turn the color intensity up tonight. See, there's really nothing there. We get a false pinkish look to it, and that, of course, that's not real color. At this phase, we're not getting that color that comes with the moon when the sun is a lot higher. Speaking of color, I'm not sure if any of you out there are big on astronomy. Like I say, I've been with it for quite a few years. I'm attending a conference this weekend coming up, which is called NEAF. Stands for the Northeast Astronomy Forum in Suffern, New York. And it's Christmas morning for amateur and all kinds of astronomers. It's just hall with vendor after vendor after vendor with all kinds of astronomical equipment, and it's really a lot of fun. But boy, you just wish you could go there with a lot of money. I'm meeting a good friend of mine there, and actually his professional career has to do with imaging, and he is going to. I'm actually going to spend the weekend down there with him going to this conference. And then he's going to come back here and let me turn this. I've got the color and I've got a little control there. Yeah, let's turn it back there. He's going to come back here with me, and I hope that we can get out and do a session together, because I would like for him to take a look at this color situation that we're getting with this camera. I'd really like to get his take on what we're seeing and why we get the color we do. I'm totally convinced that there is some slight color variations on the moon, and that this camera is bringing them out. But I'm also of this, on the same track here. The camera is really over intensifying that color. And some nights really much more so than others. Tonight it seems to be just giving us a nice, smooth color, nice even color, and it's just beautiful detail along this thin terminator tonight. And I think I probably babbled on enough tonight. I don't know how I got off on that tract on life and UFOs and the moon, but it's just something I thought I had to say after hearing some other things out there. And actually, it's as I say, it's whatever you want it to be. It's just when somebody will call you loony because you don't believe in their UFOs and their color stories. Well, it's just my answer to that situation. Let's see, we're getting a little reddish color here. I don't know why that is. Let me see. The color is on auto. Let me try turning that down a little bit and see what happens there. Yeah. But anyway, okay, with that, I think we're going to think about ending this one tonight. There we go. The color's kind of going back to normal now. I hope, like I said, I may get another video out before I make this trip down to that Northeast Astronomy Forum. But if not, hopefully just before, it would be a few days before full moon, and if my good buddy is with me. I hope we can set up and do one together, and we'll get somebody that does some work with everyday, very important imaging. Get his take on this camera and the color, and we'll see what he thinks about it. So with that, I'm going to end this and say good health, clear sky, guys, and we'll see you the next time.